Hi, my name is Danielle Ranger, and I'm talking about the issue of reward systems and different grading methods for my education blog. I don't believe that young students should be receiving rewards as incentives for schoolwork and for grades. Intrinsic motivation is much more important to develop during schooling years than extrinsic motivation is. Most aspects of life, such as jobs and even marriages, require internal motivation in order for success. Motivation itself is largely personalized, and you cannot often motivate someone to do something they don't want to do in the first place. Alfie Cohen points out in an interview with the ASCD that motivation is something that kids start out with. You don't have to bribe a young child to show how she can count to 1,000 million. He then goes on to say that this motivation seems to disappear when the grades are introduced to them. By focusing on grades and marks, students' individual skills often get ignored or inflated. For example, when a student gets 80% in a course, parents will often just accept that as a good mark, and they won't even question where they lost the other 20%. Sherilyn Aldorf, a middle school teacher, talked about the downfalls of traditional grading in her blog post. She says that there is little to no effort on her part other than the time to physically mark it. And she can get around that by making it mostly multiple choice questions so a machine can do it for her. As a result, the conversation she has with her students revolves almost entirely around their mark, rather than the abilities that the student has. Sherilyn Aldorf was also talking about using percentage-based marking and then using goal-oriented marking and the difference between what she actually has to do in order to mark. She made a comment: each time your child hands something in, I must sit very carefully and really look at what your child has proven himself capable of. This is actually harder for the teacher mark, and it requires a lot more thinking of the students' skills and their individual abilities as opposed to just simply putting a test through a Scantron and seeing how well they test. By giving different assignments and using goal-based outcomes, we can see better how each student is individually doing instead of just what the test mark brings them back at. My sister has been on the honor roll 3 times, and then she is starting to question whether it's really worth it as well. So we're going to have a quick chat with her to demonstrate a child's opinion on the honor roll and the effects of grading. What do you think about the honor roll programs in middle school and elementary school?
I think that honor rolls are a very accurate way of showing someone's efforts, maybe put into their work.
So why do you feel this way about honor roll systems?
Because there could be a student that actually does their work, or there could be a student that even gets answers from someone else and gets all their work right because of that. Then they get honor rolls and they get rewarded for copying off other people. So I think it might be better to make another system because of that.
See, that's a really good point. I actually hadn't thought about students copying before. So do you think that it impacts students negatively in the future? Like, would you say because you got honor roll in the first year, do you feel pressure because of that, or?
Yes, because some kids feel like they need to get honor roll once they get honor roll, or else they'll get in big trouble. And also, I think it has a negative impact on students later in the year, because if they're copying, like I said before, then later on they become very dependent on other people to do their work for themselves.
Personally, do you feel like motivation, like hearing that you're going to get, I don't know, like money after school if you get honor roll, or like an ice cream treat, does that help you complete your homework better?
It depends. If it's just an ice cream treat, I think that it would. But if it's like money, I think that makes more pressure because you want it really badly. But if you don't do good grades and you just keep thinking about that and you just don't do that good at all.
What do you think about candy being used in a classroom to motivate students to do work?
Well, there's good and bad reasons for that. The good reasons is that it can help students focus, but the bad reason is that it gets students off topic. It can. Chattery when you get candy.
This is my brother. He was listening to my sister's interview, and now he has some ideas to share as well. So we're just going to let him talk.
I also think that the reward system for achieving high grades in academics is not really something that should continue being used, just because it divides kids into like different categories, like the ones who are really good the ones who are good enough and then the ones who didn't make it. And you generally don't want to have separation between the people. But it does give students kind of a good feeling when they get it, like, oh, I got honor roll. It makes you feel kind of good and brings up your self-esteem a little bit. But for the people who don't get it, that can really hurt your self-esteem and bring it down.
So you've gotten honor roll before, right?
Yeah.
And you haven't gotten honor roll before, right? Which one would you say impacted you more? Did it feel better getting honor roll or like worse not? Like which one hurt more or impacted you, I guess?
Probably worse not, because once you get it, it kind of sets the bar and the standard kind of high, and when you don't meet that, it disappoints a lot of people, other than if there's no standard at all and you get what you get, and you get lower than that, it's not really too much of a disappointment.
So why do you think that students would even be motivated without marks? Like a lot of people say, why would students even try it if it's not for marks?
Well, marks do set some high standards for students, and it can motivate them, but it can also, mark is a very delicate balance, even just like between failing and passing. If you pass, it raises your self-esteem, and if you fail, it lowers your self-esteem. So I think there should be a better system that's not so delicate. Maybe spread it out a bit more. For example, you could get 90% in all your subjects and a 65 in LA because you missed a few classes, or you're just not good at that subject overall, and it'll bring you down honor rolls. You won't get honor rolls, which I think isn't fair.
Thank you for watching my video, and I hope that you enjoy the interviews that we had and the facts that we brought to the table.